Hello there, my very good friends. Andy Murray here for What Culture Wrestling, and before we dive into today's topic, let me just take a minute to point out that this was based on an editorial written by the wonderful Michael Sidgwick for our website. You'll find the link to that down below in the comment section, and it's well worth checking out because if we were to cram or try to cram every drop of insight, every detail from these articles into the video, well, the video would be 45 minutes long, and I'm actually doing you a favor because let's be honest, you don't want to spend 45 minutes with this bloody face. So load up the article, save it for when we're done here, and get stuck in. But with that out of the way, let's talk about today's topic. I want to talk about a guy who went from a derisory Freestar nickname to the most complete pro wrestler on the planet in just 2 years. The man I'm talking about is Cody Rhodes, and the nickname I'm talking about is Freestar Cody. Now, if you've been on wrestling Twitter, if you've indulged in the murkiest depths of that, you may have heard this before. It came around in 2016, shortly after Cody had left WWE. Immediately, he went to places like Ring of Honor, PWG, New Japan, Evolve. 5-star environments, right? You watch these promotions, and the people who are attracted to these promotions at the time did so because they wanted to see these 4.5, 4 3/4, 5-star, just crazy, electric, state-of-the-art in-ring performances. Cody gets to these places and suddenly he's got these 25 to 30 minute run times that he just wasn't getting for the most part in WWE. He's got a lot more time to fill. How does he fill this time? Largely with stalling and posturing. And if you think about it, this was actually quite a smart move on his behalf. I mean, if these fans are work rate fans, as they're often labeled, and they want to see big moves with a Z, well, take those moves away, heel heat, right? Cody, to his credit, was well aware that people were calling him Freestar Cody, so he leaned into it, but the problem was, he often struggled to weave these techniques into the body of his matches in ways that meant anything. So, this led to the perception that Cody Rhodes, this legacy performer, was a sports entertainer trying to live in a pro wrestler's world. What this did was make his heel persona untenable. But the first major turning point wasn't all that far away. I'm talking about All In, which is where we first saw the biggest major glimpse of what would eventually become Cody's USP. All In was the first sign that Cody was starting to perfect what would eventually come to be known as his trademark match style. And think of the circumstances here, right? He's wrestling a rather unfashionable guy at the time, not anymore, in Nick Aldis, for a belt, the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship, that was 30 years removed from its credible peak. And yet, by having this most old school of old school classic style wrestling matches, Cody showed that he was mastering the traditional beats of an epic pro wrestling clash. And what made it succeed all the more was that All In, the card, was surrounded by this high-tech's not the word, state-of-the-art, cutting-edge, hyper-athletic explosions. Matches like the main event, matches like Kenny Omega versus Pentagon. Cody versus Aldis was such a huge contrast to that, and so good that it was a tremendous success. Cody had his USP. There's an art to the slow build, and Cody isn't necessarily the kind of guy who was ever going to go out there and have these crazy battles, the likes of which Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks were having. So he crafted this, he cultivated, he grew it. And then we get to Double or Nothing, the original Double or Nothing in 2019, where he delivers his masterpiece alongside his brother, one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time, by the way, Dustin Rhodes. This was when Cody really broke through into the stratosphere of greatness. Cody versus Dustin is a blood-drenched, heart-wrenching classic. It was my favourite match of 2019. It was so effective that it actually worked people into crying legitimate tears in the audience. And think of how difficult that is in the modern era. Think about how we've all seen it all and everyone's so jaded and it's not cool to be worked anymore. Yeah, this one hit everyone, even the most cynical wrestling fans in the world, right in the feels. And of course, we all remember the ring entrance, right? We all remember Cody breaking Triple H's throne with the sledgehammer. But the greatest flex of all about this match isn't even that, it's that Cody worked a very Triple H style match with a level of effectiveness and a level of emotion that Triple H himself hasn't managed in years. And that was absolutely pivotal to establishing that AEW had plenty of substance to match this style. Yet some people still doubted just how good this guy was becoming. Some people felt the Freestar Cody nickname was still there, bubbling beneath the surface. And I mean, to be fair, they've got a bit of evidence here. Let's take the Shawn Spears match from All Out 2019. It's fair to say that's much more of an impressive spectacle than an impressive match. And even the Lance Archer match at Double or Nothing this year, man, I mean, it was much better worked overall, but there were still people talking afterwards because there were certain interferences, certain bits and pieces here and there that was a little bit overbooked, maybe the finish was a little bit muddied, maybe Freestar Cody was still relying on his old tricks. Another example, Revolution 2020, Cody MJF. It wasn't quite the seminal grudge match that we were all expecting, was it? But here's the thing about that match, the build up to it was perfect, episodic pro wrestling storytelling, and it established Cody in a position that few others have ever sat in. Few other people have ever generated such interest for what they're going to do next without a notable lull quite like this man, particularly not in the modern era. He has mastered the story, the ending, and every single beat in between to amplify the anticipation for what he sells as a legitimate fight with real stakes. There's a real premium quality to every single thing he does now. Let's take the Dustin feud and the Spears feud as well. Both of these were reliant on interlinked pasts that he expertly drew upon and wove into the present day to create a compelling narrative. And the Chris Jericho feud maybe didn't have the same level of deep personal history between the two, but he hit just about every great episodic wrestling TV beat you can think of in the build, and he knocked each one out of the park. And then, of course, we've got the MJF storyline, which was very much dictated by MJF on screen, but off screen, perhaps dictated by Cody. He did such a great job, and MJF's credit as well, of building this immense anticipation for seeing the ultimate dickhead getting his ass kicked on pay-per-view, that he couldn't help just let it wash over you, let it get into your very soul. And then, on top of that, we got the Lance Archer program, which gave him a much needed win as a fiery babyface when he really needed it. And while Cody is an excellent babyface and has proved it over the past year or so, he might be an even better heel. I mean, take something as simple as threatening to change the Bullet Club logo. Sounds like a small thing, but that logo is iconic in modern terms. It is a sacred cow. You don't mess with the Bullet Club's iconography. And yet Cody took his cleaver, dangled it over it with demented glee, and drank the tears of every upset hardcore fan who was bawling their eyes out at this every night before he went to bed. And we saw glimpses of that heel work in his TNT title run. Every match, progressively, the story was, Cody's getting a little arrogant here, he's showing off, he's fannying around, and Arn Anderson increasingly having to drag him out of the ring, call him out of the ring and say, hey, get your head back in the game. And this culminated when he faced Brody Lee, this monster that he wasn't going to be able to do any of that stuff against. He got destroyed. Again, concerted, deliberate, compelling, long-term storytelling. And if you want to measure a wrestler by how well they enhance those around them, how well they lift others up, well, let's have a look at that TNT title run again. You can't name a single opponent, I don't think, that came out of the match with Cody looking worse than when they went in. Guys like Jungle Boy, Mark Quinn, they felt far stronger for their elevatory performances against the American Nightmare. Take Ricky Starks coming in for his first match, no contract, so good, so elevatory, that Tony Khan decided there and then, I'm signing this guy and I'm going to write a whole storyline for him as well. And Eddie Kingston's in a similar boat, man. And we should point out as well that all of these matches felt different. The Eddie Kingston match was a brutal, bloody war. The Scorpio Sky encounter was more of a hotly contested sportsmanship affair between two real-life friends. The variety is immense, the success is even greater. Cody has done it all over the past few months. He has worked with a different energy and pace to strip away the big match theatrics that were bordering on formula and develop the feel, the more legitimate feel of a purist, a master, and an ace. He got the ugliest championship in wrestling over because it was him. The TNT title evolving from that original version to its much more beautiful, newer form is emblematic of Cody as a performer. He proves through all of this that going from undesirable to undeniable isn't just a gimmick, and it isn't just a catchphrase, especially when you're a man who's gone from Freestar Cody to 5 Stardust. That's a nice line. And that's it, friends. We are done. As always, I want to know what you think. So head on down to the comment section below, fire off those spicy hot takes, and don't be a dick. Get a discussion going. That would be nice. What would also be nice, again, is if you check out the article on which this video is based, written by Michael Sidgwick, link in the description below. And then, giving you a big to-do list here, you can like, you can share, you can subscribe, you can ring the bell for notifications, you can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE, and myself, where you can tell me how wrong I am, at Andy H. Murray. Don't do that, I'll probably just mute you. That won't be fun. Bye.